Hello, my name is Stephanie Podine, and this PowerPoint presentation is going to be a highlight of the most important topics and content of Chapter 1 in the Difficult Conversations book that we read in the class this semester. So out of all the chapters, this one actually stood out to me, the very first one, because it really set the stage for the rest of the book. So let's go over it and talk about some of the main points. Chapter 1 is called Sort Out the Three Conversations. Chapter 1 sets the stage for addressing the main theme of the book, which is identifying difficult conversations, and then going about how to understand actually why they happen and how to deal with them. The authors divide basically the three conversations into the what happened conversation, the feelings conversation, and the identity conversation. So let's talk about each one of these and really kind of delve into, again, understanding why difficult conversations happen and how to deal with them, and then how do we go about categorizing them, because actually all difficult conversations can be categorized into one of these three type of conversations. The first one is the what happened conversation. So the what happened conversation is going to include an emphasis, first and foremost, on understanding the structure of the conversation. And you need to know basically why things are happening and how they're going downhill so fast, because there's a lot more going on than what is actually being heard. So the what happened conversation really means that it's getting to the real reason that the difficult conversation occurred in the first place. Is understanding what is said, but more actually what even is not said. So it takes understanding that the words that are going on between yourself and the other person are really just surface meaning or the top layer to the conversation. But there's so much happens below that layer, and on each person's side that, may attribute to the reason that the difficult conversation has occurred. So in the book, there was an example between two coworkers, Michael and Jack. And so Michael and Jack developed a difficult conversation in regards to a presentation in which, one did not feel the other one did as well in and had some mistakes on. So the difficult conversation about the performance of Jack's report and then Michael's reaction to it and the need to do the report over got very heated. And so as the responses started to get heated, each person kind of got into their own point of view. And even though each person did have a right to be upset according to their point of view, there was a disconnect or a gap between what each person is thinking and what they really were actually trying to say, and even what each person was thinking and said, but what actually did not say. So there was some gaps in what actually they wanted to say even a little bit more. So understanding that it's just important to get an understanding what hasn't been said as to what actually was said, and you really start to understand that the real problem in the conversation is underlying, and we really need to get to the bottom of it. So then we have the feelings conversation. So the feelings conversation, as mentioned, it's important to be aware of what is said and possibly what is not said. And then the feelings conversation is building upon that. So it's important to get to the fact of the matter of why someone is mad, If that someone is mad and upset, as Michael was in this scenario and as Jack was in his reaction as well, questions that also need to be addressed are my feelings valid? Should I acknowledge them? Should I say them out loud? Should I check them at the door? Also, what do I do about the other person's feelings now that they're expressing them? And then how do we address both our feelings so that we can resolve the situation? So in order to answer all of those questions and get to, understand the feelings side of this conversation, it requires quite a bit of empathy, self-awareness, and being honest really with ourselves and having that open mind in order to be able to receive the message of the other person and the feelings of the other person and acknowledge them so each person feels heard. And then next we have the identity conversation. So this is a point where we are trying to understand what this conversation actually means to us and to who we see ourselves as through this conversation. So when we talk about the feelings conversation, it might have developed some feelings now that we're starting to feel maybe self-reflective. And so it's starting to question maybe our work ethic. In this situation from the book, Jack feels like his work ethic is challenged, and that he's actually being called incompetent, which makes him feel flustered and defensive. And Michael and his feelings of pressure and feeling, that he needs to impress with the presentation, and angry with Jack because he doesn't appear to understand how important it is in him, makes him question even hiring Jack. It makes him feel like he is not a proper manager, and that goes to his credibility as well. So there is, again, underlying, situations of, a question of self-image, a question of reputation, a question of our integrity that can all be compromised by the words each other uses in these difficult conversations. So putting it all together, no matter how skilled at verbal communication we are bound to enter into many difficult conversations in both our personal and professional lives. This chapter was really a tool that can be used to read and understand about deciphering what is really being said and interpreted and how it makes us feel. So this creates awareness internally that we can use the next time we are entering into a difficult conversation, and helps us, grow both personally and professionally. And it may help us to get into the habit of, tracking how we feel when we're talking to different people and talking about what actually is necessary and which feelings are valid and how we need to express them. And we can change our responses to these situations, so I can change my own personal response when I'm having a difficult conversation, even though I might not be able to change the way the other person will respond. I can acknowledge that I'm having a difficult conversation and use some of these tools that was mentioned in chapter 1 in order to be able to decipher, first of all, that I'm having a difficult conversation, which type of conversation I'm having out of the 3, and then how to go about getting to a resolution. Also, it's important to realize that when we have these difficult conversations, we don't want to fall into the truth assumption clause, where we think we know what is going on and what the other person is trying to tell us, but we really don't. So there's more going on than what we could possibly know, just like we've mentioned in the book where Jack didn't know about Michael's tight deadline in order to do the presentation, and then the pressure to have the presentation perfect. How would he know that? So unless we're expressing these things that are going on even before the conversation happens, we can't assume what the other person's intentions are, and we also cannot get defensive and assume that the other person is trying to, make us look bad or not give us credit or, assume the worst. So we can't assume that we know the truth because we might not know the truth, the real truth. So in conclusion, what chapter 1 emphasized is understanding difficult conversations, the types of difficult conversations, such as, the identity, the feelings, and the what happened conversation. So we can really understand that there's more going on than what's on the surface. It teaches us not to place blame on the other person or get defensive too quickly. And we can learn not to make the same mistakes over and over again in order to kind of try to navigate away difficult conversations, or once we enter into them to, as I mentioned earlier, resolve them in a better way. So we need to, take some of these tools that we need to listen. We need to try to ask questions to get the heart of what's not actually being said and, what lingers under the surface, and then really let the other person tell their side before we express ourselves. It may be hard at first, but the book recommends that, it's a practice that is worth practicing and that it should become, natural and intrinsic to us going forward so that you start doing it automatically. So I really enjoyed this chapter and I learned the most from this particular chapter. So hope you learned something as well and can't wait to see everyone else's presentations. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.